Good morning, Chuck. Your initial instant reaction yesterday when the news broke.
It's shocking. Was shocked. How could you not be shocked? And certainly with the speed that this all came about. Kyrie made the statement on Friday that he wanted to be traded, and less than 48 hours later, there's a deal done, and it's the Mavericks who got the deal done. And from the Mavericks standpoint, their willingness to identify the target and go all in and make it happen is to be lauded. They decided that they were not going to be outbid for this guy. They felt like this is something they needed to do right now to get the team better than it's been. And I think any fan wants their favorite team to act with that type of speed and that type of with that type of commitment. You don't want to see them dallying around and getting it all out there and drip. Here they just went and did it, and that's pretty stunning. And we'll see how it all works out.
Do you like the move personally?
I mean, look, there's a lot of good from a basketball standpoint. Just from the play on the floor and what it can bring. And look, we all know what the negatives are, and all we can do is watch this play out. The history suggests it won't work well, but you know what? We've seen upsets all the time, right? And maybe this is the place, especially with Kyrie's relationship with Nico Harrison and with Jason Kidd, that maybe this is the right place. Now, he's had other relationships, seemingly good relationships in other places where it hasn't worked out. But maybe this is the one that does. And I think this is the one that, we all who watch the Mavericks on a daily basis have to bank on, that this is the time that it will work. If it doesn't work, it becomes obviously a very, very expensive rental. And, again, we're not going to know the answer to that for a few months yet.
What do you think of the fit in terms of how they work on the offensive side of the floor?
Well, I'm older than all of you, so I go back to when the New York Knicks acquired Earl Monroe from the Baltimore Bullets to play alongside Walt Frazier. And I remember back then, it will not work. It will, both those guys need the ball in their hand in order to be great. And you know what? Everybody was wrong. It turned out absolutely fantastic. So the point being, if Luka and Kyrie want it to work, it will work. What I'm going to be interested to see is what type of offense the Mavericks actually run. Is it going to be, a continuation of the high isolation game or, just high pick and roll and pitch game that they've been playing? Or are they going to, try to do some different things? What do they do with both Luka and Kyrie as screeners? Can you use them as screeners, get them involved in the action, not necessarily with the ball, but really make the defense have to think about just what is actually happening out there and giving them a sense of uncertainty that would not be the case otherwise. And yet, even with all that certainty that you knew what was coming with the Mavericks offense, the Mavericks offense is still an elite offense. It's now more elite. I mean, there's no getting around that.
What does this do for the defensive side of the ball?
There are issues. Look, there were issues beforehand. I mean, the Mavericks are 24th in defensive rating. They've been better here of late. In the last, before Saturday night against Golden State, they had really been playing pretty well on the defensive end, actually. Better defensive rating and, obviously a lot fewer points allowed. They've had some excellent defensive games. Listen, no one's going to confuse Kyrie Irving for Gary Payton in his primes, right? Okay, that's not going to happen. You're going to see, I think, a lot of higher scoring games even than what the Mavericks have already had this year. But look, we're still 72 hours from the deadline, right? I mean, Who knows what else they're going to do here? So I think it's hard to judge what the ultimate effect of this is going to be until we get to 2:00 on Thursday and the deadline comes and goes and we see what else has happened.
We're talking with Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks here on Shan and RJ on 105 through the Fan. Chuck, when you look at, you talked about how quickly this deal seemed to came together from the time Kyrie put out that he wanted to be traded to now he's here in Dallas. There were rumblings, I know, different reports back in like October, then November and stuff like that, that the or that the Mavericks had coveted bringing Kyrie in here. Do you think this is something that they were at least sort of casually working on, or at least getting an idea from the Nets of, hey, what would it take? And that maybe gave them a baseline that they were able to get this done so quickly?
I did like the Freudian slip, by the way.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Apologies.
How will Jerry try to top this? 840.
Tune in next month to find out for sure.
Yeah.
Right? But look, general managers always talk. I mean, it's to think that, I think there's an impression out there that whether it's Mark or Nico Harrison or, any other, Michael Finley, obviously he's a huge part of the front office, that all these guys just sit around and twiddle their thumbs all day is absurd. I mean, these guys are always working. They're always talking. And whether it be in the broadest terms or in these, the highly the high terms that we're talking about here, where it's just so narrowly, highly focused, I guess is the word I'm looking for. When you're trying to get something like this done, they're always talking. So I don't doubt for a second that in the Mavericks offices, they have a big board, and they probably have a list of who might be available, who is available. No chance to get that guy or whatever. And you go and you talk to your fellow executives, and you sort of get a lay of the land and see what's going on. And, the idea, Mark Cuban has used the term really ever since he bought the franchise. We're going to be opportunistic. And they found an opportunity, and they went all in. They pushed all the chips into the center of the table.
Outside of obviously Luka and what they hope that pairing can be with him and Kyrie, who on this roster do you think most immediately benefits either from the freed up minutes or potentially being able to blend with Kyrie?
I don't know if that materially changes. I think that there's going to be an adjustment period, I think, for everybody to having those two guys on the floor. I think the guy that may have to adjust the most, at least in the short term, is Tim Hardaway, because I don't know that he'll get quite as many shots as he's had this season. He's had the ball in his hands quite a bit as well, trying to create from the wing. I don't think he's going to have the ball in his hands. He may be more of a catch and shoot guy now. I think he's the one that probably will wind up adjusting the most. I don't necessarily think that, given the skill sets of the remaining players, that they're necessarily going to have to change that much. I look at Reggie Bullock. He's a catch and shoot guy, and obviously a guy who really is still pretty good on the defensive end of the floor. They're definitely going to need that. I think Josh Green's game fits really well as a secondary creator. Not that, again, he's that third creator that we all want, like the Mavericks had last year in their run to the Western Conference Finals, but he's certainly getting better in that area. He's playing with a lot more confidence. I think his game pretty well complements what Kyrie and Luka bring to the table. So I don't know that there's necessarily a whole lot. Maybe, maybe Christian Wood doesn't get quite as many shots as he would otherwise, but maybe they wind up being better shots. And for a guy that's already pretty darn efficient, that would be a big plus, I think.
What do you do at the end of the year? Do you go 2-year? Do you go 4-year? Or does he even see this as a long-term option for him, or is he just looking to get to L.A.?
You really want me to get inside that guy's head? I mean, come on. I mean, nobody knows, and Frank, I don't know if he knows. I really don't know if he knows. And I think anybody who says that they do is just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks.
Chuck, is there anyone else, like personality-wise, you can think of that you've ever covered that reminds you of him? And pretend that we've never watched basketball before. How would you describe his game, and does that remind you of anyone else ever?
Isn't he a lot like Terrell Owens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, Terrell Owens was an immensely talented player and an immensely complicated person. And Kyrie is very much, I think, in that mode. Now, it didn't end well here with Owens, even though he was really incredibly productive in the time that he was here. But it was always an adventure. I mean, I don't know what that's going to be with Kyrie, but certainly the track record suggests that those two are pretty similar. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. What was the back half of that?
His game, like, just how would you describe his game to someone who's never watched basketball before? Does he remind you of anyone from that aspect?
I think he's pretty original. I mean, because his ability to finish as a small guy at 6'2", I don't know that we've ever seen anyone at that size who can finish with such creativity the way he does. And obviously he's got one of the great handles of all time. He's to the point where he's such a good ball handler and able to create his own shot that he's not necessarily a great assist guy, but I don't think it's necessarily because he's selfish in that regard. I mean, I just think he just knows how to get to the rim and he knows how to finish. His game is pretty original. Maybe there's some people out there smarter than I am that can come up with a comparison, but right now I can't.
Voice of the Mavs, Chuck Cooperstein on the Diamond Factory hotline. Chuck, who are some of the other names that are out there in rumors? Were there some names that you were thinking about for the Mavericks? And also, what else could we look for if they're looking for some defense and rebounding help? What were some other possibilities or scenarios you had heard or you were thinking about?
To be honest with you, Sean, I had not heard much, and I hadn't really thought of much because I really, before this all came down, I thought that if the Mavericks were going to do anything, that it would really be on the margins and that they were going to save it all up for the summer and see where they were, after conveying the pick to the Knicks, and have all the high-level draft choices available to make the deal that with the amount of capital that it seems like you have to have in order to make that type of deal. It does say something too about what the Mavericks did give up compared to what Minnesota had to give up for Gobert, or what Cleveland had to give up for Donovan Mitchell. That this is what the Mavericks had to give up, and it's not insignificant what they gave up, but certainly it's not the haul of draft choices and established players that those two teams got. But I was not even really thinking very much about the trade deadline, certainly the way you guys do in talk radio, just because I thought that they were going to just save it up and worry about really making the big splash in the summertime and just, making the best of what has been, at times, a pretty decent situation. That again, offensively, they were really, really good. Defensively, they started to come around. You kind of thinking about like last year where it kicked in for them the second half of the season and they played great. And you're thinking, well, maybe this can happen again. And so that's how really I was thinking about it. I really wasn't thinking of them basically making the trade that breaks NBA Twitter and sets the whole NBA on fire. And that's exactly what they've done.
So, Chuck, we have a Christian Wood divide. A lot of us and fans love him. Second most talented player. Why doesn't he get in the minutes? And then we keep hearing from people within the organization, we're not looking at the missed assignments. We're missing some things when it comes to professionalism. He may still be number one on the trade block. What are your impressions of Christian Wood?
Again, he's a talent. He's a real talent. On the offensive end, he's very much a one-way player. I think he has tried to be better defensively, and certainly there were moments before he broke his thumb, especially when it came to rim protection, where he had done exactly what the Mavericks had hoped he would. But the raw numbers, if you just look at the raw numbers, they tell you that the defense without him is better than it is when it is with him. It's telling that he's been with a lot of franchises, that he has this talent and has this unique offensive ability, and yet he's not been able to stick. I don't know why. Again, I'm not around, in every practice and at every moment with them. But you would think that even as an expiring contract, that he would have some trade value to another team, again, just to be able to take his 14.7 off the books and and go from there. But is he the answer on a great team? And the thing is, you know what, guys, we don't know, because in his entire career, Christian Wood has never played in really important games, and certainly has never played in a playoff game. So you're trying to weigh all of this in the last 72 hours before the trade deadline. It's a very tough call. It really is, because there's clearly something that suggests that he could be great, and you don't want to miss out on that. But if there's something that you feel that's more of a sure thing, at least certainly as it comes to experience in playing in important games, then you might be more willing to roll the dice and deal them and try to get something back that you're a little more comfortable with.
Chuck, thank you so much for the time and the insight, and congratulations. This is going to be fun, I think. Have fun.
Oh, no, the games are going to be spectacular. We're going to have entertainment. It's going to be highlight central. I don't have any doubt about that.